When your parents pass away, the house that they lived in for decades can feel like the heart of the family until you're suddenly faced with cleaning it out and making big decisions on what to keep, what to donate, and even how to help a sibling who's still living there. Today, I'm joined by Joan McCreary, who specializes in guiding families through this home clean-out process, turning what can be chaos into a clear step-by-step plan. Let's dive in. All right, Joan, I'm so excited to be here with you.
Thanks, Ellen.
Yeah, so for those who are watching, I want to introduce you to Joan McCreary. She's a certified professional organizer and the owner of JMPO. And Joan is here to talk with us about how to clear out a house when a parent is gone, and also how to support the transition of an adult child who might still be living in this house. I know this comes up a lot in our practice. And thank you so much, Joan, because I know you really specialize in this.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yes. Okay. So first thing, what are some things to think about when a parent is gone and you're clearing out a house that is now vacant?
Right. I think one of the things that I like to keep in mind is to expect the unexpected, right? We're going through a house that has potentially lots of latent emotional connection to the family. And so regardless of who's going through, if it's a service like my own or if it's the family, we're going to discover a lot of things that have been overlooked or forgotten, just kind of tucked away in those deep corners. So I always like to expect the unexpected. It also makes it a lot more enjoyable to look through because you can look past some of the more distressing elements that are in the house and look for the treasures and the beauty of the lives that were there. So I like to frame it in a very positive way. Also, sometimes we think, oh, nobody's going to want anything that's in this house. It's not valuable, or it's not in good condition, or the family wasn't connected. But people want things. And family, extended family, neighbors, friends, they come out of the woodwork after someone leaves the house, whether they're living or not, and they want things. So don't be surprised about that. But I would always start with documenting everything first. First time you go to house, before you touch things or remove anything, you want to document what's going on. You can take a video, you can take pictures, take a picture of every wall, ceiling, the floor, so you kind of know where things were before it all starts to get around, get moved around.
Just ask you something.
Yeah.
Joan. Is this something that you do? Like if somebody's really busy and they just don't know how to do this, could you step in and do all this documentation?
Yeah, that is actually one of our specialties, is working through the estate resolution as far as the personal property goes. So we do go in there. We're often the first people in the house after someone has been moved out or has passed away, and we're going to capture what's there and take a look for the important documents or the perishables, pet things. If there's a pet that has been moved out, we're looking for all these things that need to be handled right away. So yeah, we can do that.
Nice.
I think another thing I'd like to share with your viewers is that when the family or third party comes into play, you really need to be cautious about who's got legal authority at that point. So if there's a trustee that's not present, that trustee might have the powers over decision making. And so family and others can't just come in and willy-nilly take things and move things around until the legal authority has made that opportunity available to them. They have the say. So if it's a conservator and the person is still in conservatorship, if it's a trust and the person is deceased, or if it's probate, we need an administrator appointed, right? So people kind of forget about that stuff, and it can really save a lot of headaches if you go by the book.
Well, that makes sense because a trustee or, the administrator, they have the legal responsibility for doing this. And so it's on their shoulders. They could be sanctioned if they don't do it right. So that totally makes sense. Go through the person in charge, even if you feel like this is my stuff,
Yeah.
And the other thing I love that you said is like to really frame this in a positive way. I know like with my mom, she has a hard time getting rid of stuff. I'm not going to say she's a hoarder, but sometimes like she can get clothes from her bedroom to a bag in the garage, but getting it out of the bag in the garage can be hard. And I can imagine, someday, maybe 20 years in the future, when she's gone, having to go through that. I think even your cues about, making it a positive experience, I think that really helps me personally in my mindset with this.
Right. I think so often we go in, we think of this as an onerous job, and we have a lot of judgment about the person. And, oh, why didn't she just do it herself? Why didn't she make that decision? Well, she probably was doing the best she could at the time, and now it's just left to somebody else to deal with. And so we have to be a little forgiving both of the other person and ourselves in order to get through this with our head screwed on straight.
That's a tall ask. That's a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So any other thoughts about cleaning out the house?
Well, sad to say, but sometimes one of the important things to do when you're cleaning out the house is change the locks before you start. So that you have control about what you are cleaning out and what goes out, what's being documented. Sometimes we're finding there's money and jewelry and other special items in the home that need to be protected. And so we don't want to leave it to chance that nobody else has a key. It could be a dog sitter or a neighbor or, a cousin who had the emergency key, but we just really don't want them to be in the position of being under suspicion, right? If something happens. So we want to change the locks. We want to have total control over what's going on. And then I always, when it gets down to the nitty gritty about what are you doing with this stuff, try to keep things out of the dump as much as possible. Let's find the things that are recyclable, find the things that can be rehomed, given a new life. And it takes some work to do that, that's for sure. But I think it's better for everybody involved, and it honors the life of the person who lived with these things if you can give them some more life. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people out there that want stuff, even if it's free, even if it's not perfect.
Yes. I actually have a friend who recently had an estate sale where, the parents weren't gone, but they had to move out into an assisted living facility. So they had an open house and people were coming around, and it was actually kind of a joyous, fun time. And they had pizza there and drinks and then that was also a way to raise a little bit more money for the folks in the assisted living.
That's really nice. Really, really nice. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay, so now let's talk about, Joan, that I work with a lot of families who have kids with disabilities, adult children, and they really worry what's going to happen when they're gone, what's going to happen to their kid. And they may have several kids, right? So they have the neurotypical kid who's often the successor trustee of the trust, and then they have their disabled kid who's still living with them. And I'm always encouraging people, please find a new home for your kid while you're still alive, because that makes the transition so much easier. It just seems like a really rough transition if you have to, as a disabled individual, you lose your parent and you lose your housing at the same time.
Absolutely.
So, Joan, can you give us some pointers about how to help a disabled adult who's in this situation? Maybe their parent is incapacitated and had to move into assisted living, and now they're living at the home by themselves, or maybe their parent died and they're at home alone. How do we get them into a different living facility?
Right. Well, it takes a lot of firm, caring hand, just, not surprising with these individuals, but we've really got to set the expectation that they're going to have to transition to another location. And that's not going to be a quick and easy transition for them. So maybe the first point is really trying to identify where they're going to go. Working with a senior housing specialist, if they qualify for any kind of 55 and up housing, can be wonderful, but just helping them look at new apartments or homes, communities where they might go and involve them in that process. You don't have to tell them what's going on more than, we're going to go look. We're not moving today. This is just a field trip, to get them into that mindset that it's going to happen. And here are some of the choices. Letting them have some agency in what's going on, is a much more positive way than just forcing that upon them. So when I'm working with these families, then I am encouraging this individual to work as much as he can with the placement service that might be assisting. There's a whole team behind these clients, right? We've not only got our legal team, but we may have a care management. We may have a realtor who's going to be involved in selling the home, and that person's already going to be on site, kind of looking at things. And then the organizer is looking at the client in a holistic way, and where are the holes in the team and what in your environment is important to maintain when you do transition. So we want to work with that client in identifying his or her favorite items. I had a client who was a book aficionado, and his parents were too, and he held on to every single book that his parents ever had, as well as his own collection. It was enormous. Far too many things to take to the one-bedroom apartment he was moving to. So we had him choose his top selections, so a certain number of volumes, and then we had to put a lot into storage that we said we would cycle in as he made decisions. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to make decisions on his collection. And so eventually he just kind of forgot that the other ones were in storage. And when he started vocalizing that they were all gone, that he didn't even believe they were in storage anymore, then we were able to let go of them. So
great. Okay.
it was a slow process, but it helped. But I think just being realistic as much as possible with the client, with the special needs adult, about what's happening with that firm thing. It's going to happen. So here's a choice. Do you want to move these items or those items? We can't have both, and you've got to make your choice. And if they can't, then we might say, how about a little bit of that and a little bit of this? And that makes it feel a little less distressing. They're not losing everything. But that sense of loss, we've got to let them choose the pieces they want, because there's so much of their identity that they're already losing from the loss of that parent and the loss of this friendly, known home. So I think that it's really giving them a little bit of time, but you can't string it along too much, or they forget that urgency.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Now, I'd imagine that some siblings might just be kind of no judgment, right? But might be kind of fed up with this whole process and might want to just do this tough love approach of just, one day that the disabled, resident is out of the house, just kind of get rid of everything. Have you ever encountered that, and what ends up happening?
Yeah, so usually when you rip the Band-Aid off, so to speak, like, let's just get all the painful stuff done at once. We're just going to get rid of everything and move just a few things that we're selecting with our sibling to their new place. There's a level of distress that can cause the sibling, the disabled adult, to just start accumulating a lot of things to fill that gap. And I would say I have seen a lot of dysfunctional increase in the client, the disabled adult. Typically, there's already an executive function deficit going on, right? And so we see that magnified as the anxiety increases, the sadness, the loneliness, and an inability sometimes to integrate well with the new community. So the social connections are tenuous, and there's a lot of fear going on. I really don't.
I just want to, for a second, circle back to one thing you said about the professional organizer being part of a team. That this disabled adult child needs so many different people on their team. Like the parent often did just about everything, perhaps imperfectly, right? But I think it's great that you're looking at where are their holes, right? Where does this adult child need to be supported in ways that the sibling just can't do? They're off living their own life. They're stepping in, maybe they're in a different state, a different country, and so you can identify a lot of the services that might be available, a lot of the other professionals. I think that's so terrific. I just wanted to mention that.
Oh, thank you very much. I find it so important. It's one of the reasons why I network with a lot of senior service and other just professionals in the care industry that can support these families and these disabled individuals to give them the full support. We find that we do a lot of maintenance with disabled adults living on their own, where we're going in monthly or weekly even to do just small amounts to keep their possessions, their environment in tidy enough that they're going to be able to stay in the place that they're in. And then we're working with, care managers where we're noting, hey, he's not sleeping in his bed anymore. He's only sleeping in the chair. What's going on with that? We need to address that. Or he's not seeing things well in the home. Maybe he has some vision problems that need to be checked out. So we can all kind of work together to make sure that this individual is being cared for well.
That's beautiful, especially talking about the maintenance, right? Because we think, okay, the transition is done, phew, but you kind of know deep down that this kid is going to need some extra help keeping their place tidy, keeping it free of a fire risk, right? Anything that might come up. So I'm so glad that you do that work as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joan. I feel like you've provided just a treasure trove of really important information for our viewers. And so now if somebody is interested in working with you or wants to find out more, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I would suggest that they check out our website, jmpoestate.com. There's a lot of information about the wide variety of services we provide in the field of organizing and move management. And there's a contact us page there. So just reach out, let us know what you're interested in talking about and exploring, and we'll set up a phone call and have a nice conversation.
That's so easy. Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Joan.
Okay, thanks, Ellen.
All righty, take care.
Did you know that my mom has a monthly newsletter? Subscribe by clicking below.